Welcome to another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. As always, that is AJ. He is the green. I am Ken. I am the beige. And again, with us today is Justin Marville of This Just In. Justin, welcome back. Glad to have you with us, sir.
Always good to come back, especially when my Packers been in the same week that I'm on this show. Ken tricked me in week one. And he blitz me, but no. I'm only agreeing to come on this show when I know that the Packers have won. But before we go any further, unfortunately, AJ was not part of it. But I want to thank Ken. He was indeed, I was telling him before, he was a part of our most successful or most watched episode. Like, it doubled our previous height. So again, nice. Ken, just really want to thank you so very much for coming on.
Of course, it was my pleasure.
Sorry I couldn't have been a part of that, but glad that it worked out that well, though. Congratulations.
No, well, it just tells me that you might have blighted it, so it's okay.
You know what? That could very well be the case, you know. That could very well be the case.
It is true. Well, thank you for that. It was my pleasure to be on, and of course, anytime you want me, I will always try to make myself available for that. And AJ, my brother, how are you doing?
I'm all right, sir. I'm good. You know how it is over here. The weather is a bit bipolar, no pun intended. So one day dressing for winter, one day dressing for summer.
Yep, Joel, that is you over there in Texas. Well, we are having a nice warm weather week this week in Colorado.
Justin, I know you had some snow recently.
Man, not recently. Like up to today, it was snowing. So I don't know. Like, as you can see, I'm in a sweatshirt. That's every day. So there's no bipolar here. It is every day is cool.
Yeah, I usually tell people that we here in Colorado, we exist in a Game of Thrones environment. It's either winter is coming or winter is here. However, when you, Justin, for where you are in the north. You are up there with the Starks because up there is forever cold if the sun is not shining. Even
when it is shining, it is either cold or colder. There's no one.
All right. Well, of course, as we are recording this, we always try to remind you guys, we are recording this on Tuesday. And today, Tuesday, the 30th of November, is this very special day for all of us here on the panel because all of us were born in the beautiful island of Barbados, which is celebrating its 55th year of independence. And this year is extra special because they have also declared themselves a republic. So we are extremely happy and extremely proud of what has occurred in our homeland this week, today especially. And then, of course, this is the week that comes right after Thanksgiving. We didn't have a show last week, thanks to Thanksgiving. And of course, in the US, Thanksgiving has its traditions. The traditions of Thanksgiving, they include turkey on the table, family get-togethers, and of course, there is football. Now, football always includes the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys.
At what point are we going to stop that, though? Like, at what point are we going to start giving Detroit Lions games on primetime television known as Thanksgiving Day? Like, at what point is it going to stop?
It's probably never going to stop, and this is why. No, the whole concept or the thing about the Lions playing on Thanksgiving started in 1934 when their owner at the time, George A. Richards, decided to play on the holiday to attract some more fans. Now, Richards was known for his marketing acumen, and his Thanksgiving plan was an immediate hit. The Lions at the time weren't attracting much of a crowd because the Detroit Tigers were the city's main sports attraction. But on that Thanksgiving, the Lions not only sold out the stadium, but they also had to turn people away at the gates. Now, other teams had played on Thanksgiving before 1934, but the Lions were different because Richards owned a radio station that was a major affiliate of the NBC Blue Network. He negotiated an agreement with NBC to broadcast his Thanksgiving games on 94 stations across the country. Now, since 1978, the Lions and Cowboys have hosted a game on Thanksgiving every year. Detroit always plays the early game, Dallas plays the late game, And then, of course, they added a rotating primetime matchup in 2006. Now, of course, even though it was their idea to play on Thanksgiving, it is still the Lions. And the Lions are 37, 42, and 2 on their Thanksgiving games. So, yeah, so I figured that, it'd be a good spot to start this week with a little history. Because, like you, Justin, lots of people are wondering, when are they going to stop showing the Lions? But apparently, because the Lions have this history going for them, we're going to have them ad infinitum.
That is interesting. You
I
learn something new
didn't
every
know
day. Yeah, I really didn't.
Yeah, so that's why we always get the Lions. And I think that that's probably as much as we're going to talk about the Lions on this week's episode. So now we're on to the Blitz, fellas. Week 12 is in the books. And of course, we had some close games. We had some blowout games. Well, of course, we always pick, first off, who was our biggest winner for the week. So, Justin, you give you first crack. Who is the biggest winner for week 12?
I think this was my hardest question when you sent out the topics. But in going with what we talked on my show, I think I'm going to choose the 49ers. Simply because, that is what their third straight win puts them right back in the playoff hunt. If memory serves me correct, I think they're 6th seed right now. And what is so important about the victory is that Kyle Shanahan, in his infinite wisdom, has now finally realized he needed to go back to what made the San Francisco 49ers what they are, which is that zone running scheme that's just running the football. I found an interesting stat. Their last loss, which came, I think, against the Arizona Cardinals, they had this ridiculous run-pass ratio of 11 runs to 45 passes. It's crazy. That's not San Francisco football. And each of the 3 game stints, I think they basically switched to their own, doubled up. So I want to say, basically, I think it was 42 runs to 24 passes against the Vikings. So with that victory, and the Vikings were up and coming, I will say, for me, it's the 49ers, as they now have the 6th seed in the NFC.
Nice. That is a quality pick. What about you, AJ? Who was your biggest winner this week?
So, gents, I'm going to go a bit off, not off the hinge or anything like that, but just a little different to how I usually analyze these picks. So my pick is your hometown team, the Denver Broncos. And this week, my biggest winner and biggest loser are actually very much related. And I'll tell you, we'll get to that and we'll see. All right?
Mm-hmm.
But you both, in addition to myself, we all know the story of the Broncos this season. They went 3-0 in the first 3 weeks, albeit against some lesser opposition, but they started the season in that manner, and then they lost 3 in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know? The last loss of that 4-game slide was to Cleveland, and that did you know that was the last time that Von Miller played for the Denver Broncos?
No, I did not know that.
He did, right? And in the 4 games that Denver has played since Von Miller left, because he didn't play the last game before he was officially a Ram. He would have still been on the Broncos team. In the 4 games that they played since, they are 3-1. And in addition to that, they put up solid defensive performances. They beat the football team, the Cowboys, and the Chargers, right?
So are you trying to say that the Rams' struggles are because of Von Miller and team? Is that what you're trying to suggest here, AJ?
Justin, we will absolutely get to that. Trust me, we will get to that. We will get to that. So I'm just saying, since Von Miller has no longer been a part of the team, the Denver Broncos are looking very good. And their defense is actually looking a lot more solid. I had this stat. I don't know why I didn't end up getting this in front of me, but just defensively, defensively, what they have been able to do since he left, they look a lot more assured in defense and just a lot more put together, well buttoned up. No, they did have a loss to the Eagles, but the fact remains that all in all, the team just looks better since Von Miller left. I'm not saying that this is down to Von Miller leaving, but you know,
I'm seeing you, AJ. I see where you're going here. You are basically saying that the Denver Broncos are better off without Von Miller, and the Rams are worse. We can
get to that. We can get to that.
Yeah, let's give him an opportunity to build his case. So, my biggest winner for this week was actually the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Bengals have probably one of, if not the big, I don't remember all of the scores off the top of my head right now, but they probably had the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest point differentials in victory this week, 41-10 over the former big brothers of the division, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have swept the season series with Pittsburgh, allowing not, and I mean, you can say it is an average, but it is literally 10 points per game. They've beaten them 24-10 and 41-10. No, their only loss so far in their division was against the Browns in week 10. And that was a really big letdown game for them. But in this game, Joe Mixon was a star. 28 rushes, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns. When you put all of that together, the Cincinnati Bengals are for real, and they cannot be counted out in that AFC North going forward. So, AJ, no, I know you made mention of it, so I'm giving you first crack at this one. So, the biggest loser, because I somehow think this is going to tie right back into your biggest winner. So, go ahead.
It is, because it's the Los Angeles Rams.
I felt it coming.
I'm glad you all saw it. I was trying to be very transparent, right? This plot wasn't well written. It was very predictable, right? No, since the two major acquisitions, the OBJ and Von Miller, we know that there's been like a little learning curve for both, right? Last week, actually, OBJ did look a lot better in the offense. But you know what did look good? The defense. No, I'm not saying, I don't want to say that these things are correlated, but I'm just going to bring to you some facts. Because sometimes I do believe a little bit in coincidences, right? We know Von Miller was supposed to shore up the defense, and it was supposed to be this big marquee move. Did y'all realize, though, that since he joined, in the 2 games that they played, the Rams defense has given up over 30 points in both of those games, right? Mm-hmm. You know that in their previous, how many games did they play before? Was their record? No, 7-4. So in the previous 9 games, they gave up more than that defense gave up more than 30 points once to the Arizona Cardinals. No, again, I'm just saying this is 2 30-point, 2 opponent 30-point games back to back compared to 1 in 9. Von Miller himself, right, is on such a bad streak. He has not been on a winning. He has not won a game in 2021 since week 3 of this season. Yeah, every game he's played since then lost because he was on the losing streak with the Broncos. Now he's on a losing streak with the LA Rams. I'm just saying. I'm just bringing all the facts. Take from that what you will. But I think the Rams are the biggest losers. In addition to all of this, yeah, they made those signings and the team just doesn't. They don't look like they're going anywhere at this point. Even offensively, they've sort of stagnated. Even with OBJ becoming more ingratiated into the team, they still look like they're going to be at best the wild card spot. Well, yeah, because they're winning the NFC. So I just don't like how they're looking, and the defense looks worse since Von Miller joined.
Okay. Okay, sir. All right, Justin, what about you? Who is your biggest loser this week?
I just want to add on to AJ's point here about these Rams. And it was a major topic of discussion of our last show. Sorry for the shameless plug here. Not
of really course.
The reality, the situation, as I said, this team is soft on both lanes, both the offensive and defensive lane. They've gone away from running football because Sean McVay wants to show off his brand new toy in Matt Stafford. So you're seeing these 3 wide receiver sets, which is not the staple of that zone running scheme offense, which Mike Shanahan has made famous for those title winning days in Denver. And as you just mentioned, AJ, you have a situation with a defensive line, Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, and also Aaron Donald. And not once in that game against us, the Packers, were those names called. Not once. They had zero impact in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And it all comes down to both lines of scrimmage, and they're soft. I'll just leave it at that.
No argument there.
And I'm not shocked the defense is soft, because if you're not accustomed to playing your offense in practice, running the football, then you're not going to be accustomed stopping the run when it comes to actual games.
Mm-hmm.
But I've already heaped enough over 2 shows now on the Los Angeles round. I wanted to say the biggest losers were the Vikings, especially as they lost Dalvin Cook for considerable amount of time. And to me, that's their second, or might be their best player overall. That's at least the injury that makes them run. And because we lost, I think they're maybe out of playoff seeding right now. But I think really the biggest loser has to be the Cleveland Browns. And because this is a team starting the season with Super Bowl aspirations, not winning the AFC North, not getting the top seed in the AFC. This is a team that had Super Bowl aspirations. Know what? They're barely 500. I think probably last in their division, or are the very worst, or the very best third. You forced.
Yeah, they are last now. Yeah.
You forced 4 turnovers in a division game, 4 turnovers, and still could not win. And on top of that, no, the number 1 overall pick you wasted like 3 years ago on this, your supposed franchise quarterback. What are you going to do now? Because you have to know this is not your guy going forward. I think you've seen enough. Granted, you'll say that he's injured, he's banged up. He has a torn left shoulder, hip injury, ankle, whatever. But it's clear that this is not the guy going forward. So what are you going to do? Are you going to give him a contract extension? Or are you going to underpay? Like, what are you going to do there? So there are more questions than there are answers. Yeah, for me, it's the Cleveland Browns.
Well, I do have something with regards to the Browns, but I'll come a little later on in the show. My biggest loser this week was the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts lost 31-38 at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But this was as close to a gotta have it game. I mean, every game for them going forward is a gotta have it game. But this one was one that they really had to have, and they were in a position to win it. When the Titans were out there getting manhandled by the Patriots, and I'm surprised that AJ didn't, give props to his guys for their big win this week.
Because I expected it.
Okay, no problem, sir. But this gave the Colts an opportunity to get closer in the division, and as well to get some momentum in the wild card race. They had the lead at the half and completely abandoned the run in the third quarter. They had 1 run in the entire third quarter, and by the end of the third quarter, I think they were up by 10, and then they were down by 4 at the end of the third. Mm-hmm. They had Tampa Bay right there for the taking. But Frank Reich decided that Justin, you had made mention of Sean McVay and how he wanted to show off his brand new toy. Instead of putting the ball in the hand of his best player, Jonathan Taylor, he decides he's going to stay super aggressive and scuppered any chance of winning. So when you put all of that together, I couldn't see anybody as a bigger loser this week than Indianapolis Colts. You had an opportunity to knock off the defending champs, and you completely wet the bed in that third quarter. That was frustrating. All right, so now the moral victory. Now, I know we're getting kind of late in the season, and when we were saying that people were finding more, they had room for motivation with some losses early on. I think the motivation is kind of winning, because at this point you need to win some games. So Justin, who gets your moral victory this week?
You're going to be shocked and you're going to look angry at me. But oddly enough, it's the same Colts you just mentioned. Now, let me preface that by saying I do not believe in moral victories in professional sports. I do not believe in them. I don't think there's anything as a moral victory. And especially in this case, because you're right, Ken, this is a team that was up by 10 points, I think, early in the third quarter and had no right losing a game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For me, because I had to scramble to find an answer to this question. For me, I guess you could say it's a moral victory because this team has not beaten any elite teams for the entire season whatsoever. And I think maybe they feel now, having led by 10, and as you said, squandered that with 3 turnovers because they went away from the run. Granted, they could understand why, because if there's a team that is very hard to run against, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with that front 7. You talk about Vita Vea, and Ndamukong Suh, JPP, and then the 2 linebackers behind them, Devin White and Levante David. There is no team more adept at stopping the run than they are. And I watched the game, and you can see they were clearly setting up to stop the run. They're like, if somebody's going to beat us, it has to be Carson Wentz. And I think we all know how that turned out. Yeah, that's a game that I don't think they had any right losing. And if there's any consolation, I guess they have proven to themselves that they can play with elite teams. They definitely have an MVP candidate in Jonathan Taylor. And if it's just get it together, this is a team I don't think anyone wants to see the playoffs because they're, even as much as they gave up 38 points to the champs, a lot of that is because of turnovers. This is still a very good defense. This is a very, very strong offensive line, a very good running team. I don't think that anyone wants to see them if they find a way to get in playoffs. Because if there are 2 things that travel, it's a running game and it's defense.
It is true. So, AJ, what about you? Who gets your moral victory this week?
With that start that Justin just had, it's hard to come in and talk about moral victories. But because according to the new Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Jay-Z, moral victories are for minor league coaches. But I will say that if there's anything I believe is akin to a moral victory, it is taking down a division rival who has been on an absolute tear. Which is why it may surprise you that my pick for this week is the New York Giants. No, the reason why they are my moral victory pick and not the least inspiring pick is because that Eagles team in the last 2 games put up 70 points, 40 and then 30 in their two game win streak, right? No, it wasn't a dominant or extremely convincing win by the Giants, but they held the Eagles to 7 points. And the fact that just the week before, all the conversations about the Giants were about the coaches, should these guys really be in charge? What are the Giants really? Every year they're this also ran team who are not terrible enough to get like a top draft pick or to be like in the top order of the draft, but they're not good enough to ever make the playoffs. Just always in limbo and equilibrium. With all of those things happening, to get a victory like that, and like I said, against a division rival, and let me add as well, in the recent run of form that the Eagles were having, Jalen Hurts, even despite all my criticisms, I will admit, he ended up until that game, he had the highest QBR of all quarterbacks in the league in that month leading up to that game, right? So, just what they were able to do, like I said, taking on a division rival, it means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. The Giants they're not going to be any better. That does not affect their season, but if they can take anything from it, it's just knowing that they were able to stop the Eagles. So to me, that equals a moral victory.
Okay. I did not expect that the Giants would have made an appearance on this show because we've not had the Giants.
Just hold on, okay. Just wait up.
Okay. All right, cool. No problem. Well, I'll just move on to my moral victory. That was actually the Las Vegas Raiders. I had the Las Vegas Raiders as my moral victories for this week with their win over the Cowboys, 36-33 at Jerry's World. No, we know that the Raiders, they played an almost complete game against the Cowboys, where Carr was 24 of 39 for 373 yards and a touchdown, and the team Raiders ran for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns, and their defense kept the vaunted running game of the Cowboys to 64 yards. No, the Raiders are 6-5. in a season full of controversy and full of distractions, probably more than any other team has had to deal with, probably in NFL history. But they're 6-5 and they're still in the hunt for a wild card spot. They probably will not see the Cowboys again because this is an AFC team and the Cowboys, we know, are not going to make it to the Super Bowl. But this is still a good enough showing against an elite offense by that defense and a good showing by their offense. So they should take some measure of comfort going
You're
forward.
talking about wild card, right? I want you to know they're only a game behind Kansas City for the division leader. Just one game. And I'm not here to tell you they're going to win the AFC West, but anything can happen.
It is true. That division right now is very, very up in the air, but I'm sure that we'll have a chance to touch on that a little bit later on in the show. So Justin, least inspiring win. You said that, you had to give it a chance. So I'm giving you first chance. Who gets your least inspiring win this week?
Who would have thought the Giants would come up twice in one podcast, right? That is the least inspiring victory, not of the week, for the season. And I'll explain, they also had no right winning that contest, because if Jalen Reagor would just do what he was drafted to do, which is catch the people football, we would not be having this conversation, especially on the last second play where I don't know if a ball goes through his hands. You are a first round draft pick. Forget that. You are a starting receiver in the NFL. Your defender is on your back. That is as easy as a catch down the field as you're going to ever want. And it was just drop after drop after drop from Jalen Reagor. And why I hate this victory for the New York Giants, especially, right? You have probably just saved Joe Judge's job, which he does not deserve having it saved. You have probably convinced management that Daniel Jones is the starting quarterback in this league, which he's not. That is the worst case scenario for you if you are the Giants, because you're not going to catch the Cowboys for the division lead, and only one team out of that putrid NFC East is going to make the playoffs. You have to understand, you have to realize everything in New York has to go now. Everything. You got to give up on Saquon. You got to give up on Daniel Jones. You got to give up on Joe Judge. It's just sell everything. And that victory is only buying more time for Daniel Jones and Joe Judge.
Well, just two interesting thoughts that came to mind based on what you were saying just now. Jalen Reagor, somebody listed him for sale on eBay for $5. That was number one.
And it's too much. $1.50 for Jalen Reagor, $1.50.
Right, and then number two is that Gettleman, the GM, his contract is up this year.
Oh, he's not coming back. If you feel that you need to get rid of Joe Judge and Daniel Jones, he's the first one up the door.
Correct. And if he is gone, then those other two. Well, we made mention of this, agent, that we were talking about this during the game when on Sunday, and they had made the mention of that Daniel Jones is not the answer. However, he is still on his rookie deal and his contract is still quite friendly. So chances are he might survive. Not necessarily as the starting quarterback, but he might still just be around in New York going forward. So AJ, what about you? Who is your least inspiring win this week?
I'm coming right back to my division, the Miami Dolphins. You think that beating a Panthers team who have shown that they've given up on the 2021 season means anything? Putting up 33 points, Tua Tagovailoa had one touchdown. One. In over 30 points, he had one touchdown. 27 of 31, 230 yards. Did anyone in that game really look convincing to you? Did anyone on Miami's? I mean, on their offense, let me say. And I'll be very honest with you guys. I didn't watch this game. I just watched highlights, but nothing looked convincing to me. And having I guess what we would call a blowout win, like I said, over a Panthers team who they seem to still be trying to figure something out for 2022. I think that's the least inspiring win for me of the season, because the Dolphins are no better. They're still not going to make the postseason, but this is just good numbers to fluff up the stats.
Okay, fair enough. No, the team I had picked for my least inspiring win for this week, and I don't have to get too heavy into it, because this was touched on earlier, but it is the Baltimore Ravens. How do you go and Lamar Jackson throw 4 interceptions against the Cleveland Browns? You you win the game, but coming out of that, you have to feel very concerned about what's happening with your offense. And I think that is enough said for that game.
You don't have to tell me because he's my starting quarterback on my fantasy team. So
Yeah, I have him in one league too. That was.
Yeah, so do I. So we
He was
all
trying
have
to make
him
chicken
somewhere.
salad out of chicken. You know what?
It is true. He gave me 9.28 points this week, but at least I did not need him to be Super Lamar to win that matchup. But of course, we were talking a bit just now. You can't mention this game this week with the Ravens before talking about the Browns. And speaking of the Browns, Kareem Hunt's dad is taking shots at Baker Mayfield. Now, you will remember that we had a situation with Odell Beckham Jr.'s father. He was also making some comments with regards to Baker Mayfield. Now, Kareem Hunt Sr., he said on Twitter, no, I'm getting people on my Facebook saying I'm being like OBJ daddy, and I'm not. I'm stating facts on football. And what we see, he's limping, he's scared to throw the ball, and they know he's hurt. They're going to keep listening, but if people don't like what I'm saying, unfriend me. I'm not jeopardizing nothing. I got a right to speak. I ain't posting no videos. Have a good day. Go Browns. Hopefully. Then he came back a little later on and he said, last thing, I don't want nobody to be hitting at me. Like I said, new quarterback, new situation. We could have won this game long time ago. I don't know what the defense was doing. They did good, 3 interceptions or more. All I can say is, please don't hit me. I told you so. Now, of course, these posts are no longer anywhere to be found because they have been since deleted from the social networks. But of course, if you are a prominent person or you are a prominent person's father, someone's always watching and screenshotting because these things do make for good content. So AJ, I'll let you weigh in first on this is what he said. Literally. So what do you have to say about what
Are there any other Browns players who are named after their dad? Because if that seems to be the trend, that seems to be the trend here. So anybody who's a junior, look out, your dad might be next. All right. First of all. Secondly, I do think that this case is different to the OBJ senior junior tandem, right? Because in this case, with him just like it was a tweet, right?
Mm-hmm.
With him just tweeting this out, it could very much be a possibility that Kareem Hunt Jr. did not know about this, right? It's not as if a video was put together, like taken time to be constructed and then posted. And it's not like a video uploads in 2 seconds. You have to sit down there and wait for this thing to get uploaded to whatever platform, right? This man, Kareem Hunt's father could have really just tweeted this of his own volition, in just a moment of complete madness, not taking into consideration what had just previously happened. Or it could honestly be an orchestrated plot because Kareem Hunt feels that, all right, well, his penance is over for what he did, and he wants to get out of the Cleveland Browns and get into a better team. I had not made up my mind as to which I believe as yet, but I think that one of those possibilities exists on Earth, and then the other exists in some parallel universe.
Understood. Justin, what do you have to say about what he said?
That Odell Beckham Jr. and Kareem Hunt are lazy. Like all you did, right? Like all you did was change one letter and put an S and say, "Oh no, that's not me. That's not me. That's me." Oh come on, like really. Let me first tell you, right? Like that's like me saying, "Oh well, that's not me. It's Justin Marville that said that. It's not me." Like, oh, like the first thing, right? These family members know what's at stake, and even if let's for argument's sake say that neither son actually did this, as much as I do believe in Odell Beckham Jr. being more so than in this case with Kareem Hunt. You're trying to tell me that these guys that make millions with NFL contracts don't talk to their families and tell them these are the things you should not do? Kareem Hunt Sr. knew exactly what he was doing, whether he was instructed by Junior or whether he had the blessing of Junior. They know exactly what he's doing. So there is no universe dimension, as AJ is mentioning, that Kareem Hunt did not know what was going on. So let me just put that up there quickly.
I wasn't absolving Junior necessarily of blame completely. I agree with the fact that he had to have been talking to his dad for his dad to do something like this. But I'll let you continue. Sorry, I was just saying.
Because all of a sudden now these dads know about football and they can message and they know what's going on. But the reality is both dads are right. Because if you watch the 15-minute film, and it's really hard to watch from Odell Beckham Sr., gosh, it is. Those missed passes are terrible. Like Odell Beckham Jr. is so open, I don't know. But then where I think Kareem Hunt Sr., his point is, and there's no denying this, you are trotting out an extremely injured quarterback who is costing you victories. Whether or not he feels that Baker Mayfield, a healthy Baker Mayfield, is good or not, I don't know, or we don't know. I guess he's trying to say, stop playing this guy who is banged up and put Case Keenum, because you played Case Keenum and he has not cost you victories yet. So why not put Case Keenum? And I have to agree with him because for two things. One, Case Keenum in a backup role or coming in to start, he's won you a game. And on top of that, he is so familiar with Kevin Stefanski's offense from the days of Minnesota. So sorry about that, Ken. I know that's a hard pill for you to swallow and hear about. But Case Keenum does know that Minnesota offense or Kevin Stefanski's offense from the time in Minnesota. And I have to believe right now that Case Keenum is better than an injured Baker Mayfield. And I mean, I already went on my rant about Baker Mayfield already. Like, this guy, you're not going forward with a team with Super Bowl aspirations and a Super Bowl roster right now. That can't be your starting quarterback. But if anything I've gotten from Kareem Hunt Sr., you've got to play Case Keenum because Baker Mayfield is costing you games, whether it has to do with his injuries or not.
So I actually don't have anything to add to what you two had to say, because I have been very critical in the past of Baker Mayfield, and that his fathers are now coming out and taking shots at him.
These fathers.
Yeah, of course. If it is the fathers indeed, then that is interesting. If it is the sons using the fathers to get at their supposed franchise quarterback, that is also interesting. I just don't have the energy right now to go in again on Baker Mayfield. I just don't.
I mean, let's tell me and I'll go for it, Ken. If you really want me to be that guy right now, right? I can be that guy.
I think we can save some of that fire for a little later on, because Baker is probably going to do something other than another progressive ad, and is going to cause us then to have to talk about him at that point. So we can leave that's what he said there for this week. And now is on to who do you trust? Now, for those who would have been looking into what we have on our or Instagram feed, this week's episode, I had referred to it as the big crystal ball, because I want us to look into our crystal balls and take a look a few years into the future. First off, the first topic or point was with regards to running backs. Now, of course, you would have heard by now that Christian McCaffrey is injured again, and he is back on IR for the second time this season, which means that no, he is done so for the year. Now, cast your mind back with me. 5 years ago, 2016, the top 5 running backs in the league were Ezekiel Elliott, Jordan Howard, DeMarco Murray, Jay Ajayi, and Le'Veon Bell. Since then, we've had other prominent rushers come through like Todd Gurley, Chris Carson, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. Now, as I may mention, CMC, he is on IR. Derrick Henry, he's also on IR. Zeke has been overtaken in his own backfield by Tony Pollard. Howard is a backup. DeMarco Murray is retired since 2018, and Le'Veon Bell right now is a free agent. Now, we look at the current crop of running backs and look into your crystal ball, gentlemen. Who do you trust of our current crop of runners to be likely to fall the way of the former elite running backs? And Justin, I'll give you first crack.
So you're asking me which of these running backs I expect to no longer be prominent in 5 years?
3 to 5 years, because 5 years is a long time, and chances are all of them could be gone. But let's say 3 to 5 years.
I was about to say all of them. Like, in reality of the situation, that is why teams are so hesitant to pay running backs. Let's draft them. I am not against drafting running backs in the first round, and I'll explain why. I've always felt, outside of offensive linemen, the number one group that produces immediate, I want to say, Pro Bowlers out of the first round are running backs. Because of any position group, they are the ones ready to hit the ground running. Like, you've seen that. You mentioned Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry. Well, maybe not Derrick Henry, but Christian McCaffrey. When you look through all of these top running backs, all of them come immediately hitting the ground running because that is the position group that is most prepared to play at the next level. In 3 to 5 years, I do not expect Christian McCaffrey to be in the league. Don't expect Derrick Henry to be good, especially Derrick Henry, because I was wondering, as much as a man, he is huge and he's the one doling out punishment. I always wondered how much longer can he put that weight on his frame? And we found out, well, not much longer, partly because the injury he's sustained is to his foot. And that comes as no surprise to me. So within the next 5 years, I don't expect Derrick Henry to be what he is, and I would not be surprised if he's not in the league. To go even further, my guy Aaron Jones. For the last 3 straight seasons, he has had an MCL strain. And he is not even what you would call a workhorse back. We have always had another back splitting carries with him. And as you've seen, we've had AJ Dillon doing the tough sledging. And he is like I don't want to say a scat back, but you could split him outwide like Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, and he can serve as a wide receiver. And even he is breaking down with injuries. After we gave him this payday, which I wanted to, he's not even been the same guy this season. Excuse me, so sorry. Yeah, so sorry. He's not been the same guy this season as much. Like, even if you take away the injury early in the season, not the same dude. He's not on track to crack 1,000 yards this season, and we've just given a huge payday. I don't know, right, if there is a big name running back right now that 3 to 5 years we can say will be that same guy. Maybe I'll say Jonathan Taylor, but outside of that, I can't name one. Maybe Jonathan Taylor, and that's it. Every single major name we see right now, in 3 to 5 years, they're going to be done.
What about you, AJ? Do you agree with that?
So when I first saw this question, right, my initial thought was that, yeah, I'm not going to speak on the 5-year part. I feel that's way too long, and I agree with Justin in some regard that in 5 years is too far a scope of time to predict this running back situation, right? It is here today, gone tomorrow. And in your opening, you also forgot to mention my guy David Johnson. A few years ago, yeah, I know he's a Texan. That's oh, how the mighty have fallen, right?
Yep.
But I will say in 3 years, I agree with Justin with Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor is one of the names on the up. So in the names that I prepared, I'll say in the next 3 years, Jonathan Taylor was one of the names I had. I actually think that Najee Harris is still going to be relevant at that point, but he's not a big name. And the third name I have, and this may come as a surprise, but is Austin Eckler. I honestly feel that Eckler will still be there in about. He's a really tough dude, and what surprises me about that is that he He's not a huge frame as Justin mentioned with Derrick Henry per se. He's more stout but very much built, and he could take the licks on the inside. He can take the hits. It could just be an admiration for the guy. In addition to that, some of the younger guys, I did have Justin, your guy, AJ Dillon. I think he could still be relevant at that point. Javonte Williams, a rookie out of Ken, your place in Denver. I think he's taking a claim to be a lead back at that team at some point. I think Melvin Gordon's days. He's another one. His days are essentially done, I really believe. And the rookie that we actually drafted in Ramondre Stevenson. If he stays in as a New England Patriot, I think Bill will make sure that I keep getting flashbacks of like Brandon Bolden when I see him play. And you know how Bolden has, like, even when Bolden left for a year and whatnot, he finds his way back to New England. And even if he's not the biggest name, he always has a role, as you can see this season. And I feel like Ramondre Stevenson might be the one to be taken over from him. And I'll give a special mention to, no, you know what? I'll put him on the other side, James Robinson. I think 3 years he's done.
Okay.
So sorry, Ken, I just want to finish up because I didn't make the point totally. I have not a problem with drafting running backs in the first round. My problem comes with paying them after that initial rookie contract, and that's the problem. So, yeah, draft in the first round if you think that running back can put you over the top. So I had no problem with Pittsburgh drafting Najee Harris. My issue comes in paying running backs after that rookie contract. Like, if they give you 2-3 Pro Bowl years in that 4-year span, great. But don't pay them after. Don't make that mistake. Like with Ezekiel Elliott, and I think we're now starting to see that with Aaron Jones and GreenBaje. Just don't pay them that second contract.
See, so this,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Before you did get into it, because I realized I did leave out the other side of my point, which is the ones who I expect to be out.
Oh,
and yeah, and heading the double-headed monster at the top of that list, Saquon and Run CMC. I was a McCaffrey fan from his rookie year. I actually drafted him in fantasy in about 2 leagues in that rookie year. Been a huge fan. I don't see how this guy has a future in the NFL, even a short-term one. Saquon too, I don't see it. You mentioned Chris Carson. I think he's also on the way out. I just felt like throwing in this name because a few years ago he was actually a premier name in Arizona, and that's Kenyon Drake. I don't know what the situation is with him. And one name that I was debating a bit, this will be the last name, was DeAndre Swift. But I think I'm going to give DeAndre Swift the benefit of the doubt because I think he could turn out the same way Fournette did, in a sense. Just leave a team that absolutely sucks, where you were not getting the best, where you were not being optimized, and he still probably could have some success in a better team. So I'll look out for him. I wouldn't put him on either of these yet. He's just stuck there in the middle. DeAndre Swift, that is. And sorry, Ken, you can go ahead now.
well, it's interesting that you said DeAndre Swift because he was the first name I was going to call as somebody I believe is going to be out within the next 3 years. And the reason for that is that DeAndre Swift, for the length of time he has been in the league, he has been hurt every year. And Justin, you had made mention of this before we had started, how, especially in fantasy, you try to stay away from running backs who have an injury history. But DeAndre Swift is one that his injury history is one that definitely does give you pause. No, it was interesting to hear. There was a name that one of you called just now, and AJ, you made mention just now of Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler for me is right up there next to Dalvin Cook. He is one that gets hurt often. And because he gets hurt so often, he is not one that gives me much cause for optimism for his longevity. It's not to say that he can't play. I just don't think that he's going to be able to sustain it for an extremely long period of time. Now, one person who I could understand, I was waiting to hear one of you call his name, but neither of you did, so that I could try to defend him a bit. And that's my guy, Alvin Kamara.
I was leaving that entirely up for you. Entirely up to you. I have no desire to call that name. Go ahead.
I believe that Kamara has the opportunity. He has the ability because of the way he plays, especially when he has a bruiser in the running back room with him to do the heavy lifting through the tackles, where then he can play more of a scat back type of role. He has the kind of game that can last, especially when you look at the balance that he exhibits, and he doesn't necessarily take the hardest of hits compared to like a Derrick Henry or another one of these runners who runs through the tackles. I believe that he has an opportunity to survive, provided that the Saints then gives him somebody that is going to be the between the tackles and the guards kind of runner where then he can work more on the outside. So he is one that I believe has an opportunity to survive. But all the names that you guys called before, Christian McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, all of those guys, I don't see how they are going to be in the league in 3 years, let alone 5 years.
And I view, sorry to say this, Alvin Kamara the same way as Aaron Jones. I thought so too. And this season has proven like Aaron Jones' drop-off has been, I don't want to say huge, but no one in Green Bay is really talking about it because he's got that big contract. And I suspect the same thing with Alvin Kamara. No, you did something there, Ken, that shocked me because I don't know how I forgot Dalvin Cook. He's the first name I should have called. Like every single season, this man is injured like, for some whatever reason. And I guess because he is not, I'm not want to say he's a small back, but he's a bell cow back for the Minnesota Vikings. And I wonder if his frame is big enough to handle what they're asking him to do, because every single season without fail, Dalvin Cook misses games. And I do not expect Dalvin Cook to be relevant in 3 years' time.
But I told AJ this before, and he will remember this statement. I told him that Dalvin Cook's hamstrings are old rubber bands. They are susceptible to pop at any time. Now, it's unfortunate now that he's dealing with a separated shoulder. His hamstring has not been the issue. He's had an ankle injury, and now he has a shoulder injury. But he is one that is almost always getting hurt. So he does not fill my heart with any optimism whatsoever. All right, so enough of the running backs. Now we're going to bring it a little bit closer to what's happening now. The playoff picture is murky in both the AFC and the NFC. The Cardinals and Ravens, they currently occupy the number 1 seeds, but especially in the AFC, it has been very volatile, with the number 1 seed changing hands approximately 4 or 5 times this season. All right, gents. So who do you trust to make the playoffs, and who occupies the seedings?
You want me to start first?
Sure. Go ahead, Justin.
All 7 seeds in both conferences?
If you have them.
All right. I will start with the AFC because that's the fun one. As I said, to start the year, initially I wanted to choose the Browns to start the year, but then when I looked through the schedule, brain kicked in and said the Baltimore Ravens will win that division. And I also have them taking the AFC's top seed. So I have the Ravens. That AFC West, everybody's pooping the bag and allowed the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't believe that they have allowed Kansas City to be at top of the division. So it's going to be the Ravens, the Chiefs. The AFC East winner is going to come down to these 2 games between Buffalo and AJ's Patriots. I see a situation where they split. I am going to go because I trust coaching more and the rookies not turning over the football. So I'm going to say the Patriots get that 3rd seed. And who wins the South? The Titans are going to back into the South just because. So those are my 4. The Bills with the 5th seed. I know a lot of Bills fans are going to curse me for saying that. I'm missing somebody. 6. Oh, how can I forget? My guilty pleasure, the Bengals, and bringing up the rear, I'm going to go to Chargers. So those are my 7 from the AFC. In the NFC, I have to say Packers is number 1 seed, right? Just have to, just because. So Packers number 1 seed, Cardinals 2, Buccaneers 3, Cowboys as the NFC East winner 4. Think obviously then the Rams as the loser of the NFC West at 5. I'm going to say the San Francisco 49ers 6. And this is where it gets dicey, depending on when Dalvin Cook comes back or if he ever comes back. If he does come back in time, I'll say Minnesota 7. If not, wow. Oh, Lord, I do not know who I'm putting that 7th seed. I have no idea. Like, there's nobody worthy of that 7th seed. I think it should just vacate it. I think that the NFC should just go, I think the NFC should just go straight, 6 seeds. Because I can't think of a 7. I'm going to say Minnesota just because.
Okay, interesting. We'll come back to your difficulty with the 7th seed in a second. AJ, who do you have and where do you have them?
Can you really throw me off of this one, right? Because I looked at this question and I was going to start to prepare all 7 positions as well. And I started looking at the Ravens. I was like, okay, the Ravens, they're leading the AFC right now. And then looked at their schedule. Because I couldn't find a way to do this without actually looking at each team's remaining schedule to see what I thought would come to fruition, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to sound like one of those fans, but the way things are looking right now, I honestly feel like the New England Patriots could end up on top of the AFC. I honestly believe so, based on
that is not a hard thing to believe, AJ.
It is not unreasonable at all.
Based on where we are now and our remaining schedule, Justin, like you, I think that we will split the series with the Bills, and then we have the Dolphins again. I know they usually beat us in Miami, but I feel like this year is a redemption year. It just feels kind of different. We'll see. And we have the bye week in the Jaguars. Then other than that, there's the other games are the Colts. So 2 against the Bills and then the Colts. That Colts game is in Indianapolis. But I just have faith in us to be able to continue our run. The Ravens have what I deem to be arguably from what I've seen so far, the toughest schedule going forward. They still have some division games. The Ravens have to play the Steelers next. Then they have the Browns again. Then they have the Packers, the Bengals, the Rams, and then the Steelers to end the season. They are too inconsistent a team at this point. Even without bias, I just don't know how they come out of that schedule. And with them being just narrowly ahead of us, I feel like we could, and obviously that would put us in a very good position. I'll have to let you go because I really didn't. After that thought entered my mind, I really didn't. I was so overcome with emotion at the fact I didn't even look at the rest. I was like, yo, we could actually do this. I don't want to just wishful thinking though. But what I will say is in the NFC though, I do expect Justin's Packers to finish up in that number 1 spot. I think some of because you guys are like a game behind Arizona now.
A half game.
Half game. There we go. Half game. I don't think. I think the Packers are in line to do that. That's all I have for you so far. Right now, I'm going to be the homer and say that my Pats can take the top seed in the AFC, and that I expect the Packers to be on top of the NFC. As with regards to the others, you might have to check me back on that.
Okay, no problem. I knew that this question would have been a little bit difficult because when you're looking to try to predict and prognosticate as to what's going to happen with teams, we still have another 6 weeks to go in the regular season, and with 6 weeks, anything can happen. However, from the purposes of this question, I looked at what every team had done so far and the strength of their schedule to come. So in the AFC, I have the Patriots. AJ, believe it or not, I have the Patriots taking the number 1 seed. The Titans have the easiest strength of schedule from here to the end, so I believe that they're going to win enough games to take the number 2 seed. Number 3 seed is going to be the Ravens, and the number 4 seed will be the Chiefs, because the Chiefs have one of the toughest schedules coming up. And while their defenses look good and their offense seems to be clicking, we need to see more to be convinced going forward. Number 5, I actually forgot them. I had to add them in there just now, is the Bills. I have the Bills being the best of the rest. The Chargers are going to be the 6th seed, and the Bengals are going to be number 7. The Colts, when I forgot the Bills, I had the Colts at 7. But because I had to slip the Bills in there, now the Colts would then be the best of the rest of the league when they're not going to make the playoffs. For the NFC, Justin, just like you, I don't have a team at number 7 because I can't trust any of them to get there, including my Saints. I actually believe my Saints are going to fall outside of the playoffs based on what I have seen over the last 3 weeks or so. So, to the top, I actually have the Cardinals holding on to the number 1 spot. The Buccaneers are going to finish 2nd. The Packers are going to be 3rd. And the Cowboys are going to be in the East. The Rams should hold on to that 5 spot. And the 49ers, based on their improved play, should be the 6th seed. So we got 3 teams coming out of the NFC West. I just don't know who is going to get that 7th seed because the Vikings, it's hard to trust the Vikings. I would love to say it will be my Saints.
It's amazing that the 2 of you are in this position. That's incredulous to me. I wish I had studied it more to be able to be the third wheel here, but I like it though.
You don't understand the gap between the elites in the NFC and the also runs is so huge. Like there's no in between. It's either in the NFC you are very good or you are very bad. Like
if we still had Jameis, I would have said that the Saints would have been in there between 6 and 7 because we would not most likely have a better record than the Rams. But no Jameis, no proper play coming from our quarterbacks. There's no way then I can just say that the Saints are going to be the team that's going to finish with double-digit wins. Right now, we're looking at probably finishing the season 7 and 10, 8 and 9. As I told Justin before we started, at this point, I believe the Saints should just punt on the season and just bring in Ian Book. Let the rookie play for the rest of the year. So we see if we have anything with him. And then we'll see what happens in the next season.
To show you AJ, the situation that is, right? I'm going to put it out there since you say you don't know. Who are you going to say? Do you trust the Vikings to get that spot? Do you trust the Atlanta Falcons? Do you trust the Washington football team? Is it the Eagles? Is it the Carolina Panthers? You see that is what we are faced with. Like, what of those 5-6 teams can you safely see will make the playoffs?
Right.
And then I understand what you're saying. But you know something that I'll admit to you guys that in watching last night's game, I actually was deep, and this could be coming from a place of solely just having moved from Washington DC, right? But I actually have a little bit of faith in this Washington football team. Even after losing a defensive stalwart in Chase Young, they're not magnificent defensively, but they have been still looking a bit more solid. But offensively is where's the draw for me, right? Look, I said this in my primetime picking videos for last week. I actually like Taylor Heineke, and I think Taylor Heineke plays. He quarterbacks his football team in a very smart manner. He plays very smart. He doesn't try to force the ball down the field, and what he's doing is helping his team. He's winning games for his team, and the strength of the remaining schedule, it looks kind of tough for them based on the position they're in now. But I mean, they have Dallas twice, and Dallas ain't really been looking up to the. But like I said, it could be the part of me that's still in DC, but I just have faith in these guys. So if you're asking who the best of the rest, if I had to pick a name, I would actually say the Washington football team.
And that's not a bad pick. It's just like a lucky dip.
No, of course it is. Of course. I agree. I just wanted to bring that up because I actually was thinking this as I was watching the game last night. You know what I also thought too, Ken? the Seahawks really suck. The Seahawks are terrible. They just don't look like they're well coached. They can't do anything right. How is it that you blow the chance to actually win the game because a man didn't know where to stand up on special teams? Like, what? Come on, man. You know, from the beginning of the season, I was saying I expected them to be bad, but no, I didn't expect them to be this terrible. I didn't expect them to stink up the joint.
I realized, Ken, I did not call the Seahawks names. I mean, we called the Eagles, we called the Carolina Panthers, the Saints, and we did not call the Seattle Seahawks.
It is correct.
Sad day, it's a sad day.
But I mean, the Seahawks right now, they are 3-8. There is no way that they're making the playoffs.
Oh, of course not.
They'll have to win every game from here on out, and that is not going to happen.
By about 40 points too.
There you go. So just to put a bow on this one, I'll just give you guys the strength of schedule ranking for the remainder of the season in both the AFC and the NFC. So from most difficult to the easiest. In the AFC, we go Chiefs, Browns, Chargers, Steelers, Raiders, Ravens, Bengals, Colts, Dolphins, Jets, Broncos, Texans, Jaguars, Patriots, third from bottom, Bills, second from bottom, and Titans with the easiest. For the NFC, Cowboys have the most difficult, followed by the Washington football team, the Saints, the Bears, the Vikings, the Giants, the Panthers, the Lions, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Cardinals, fourth easiest, 49ers, third easiest, the Eagles, second easiest, and the Falcons, but I do not think that the easiest schedule in the NFC makes any difference for the Falcons. So that now moves us now nicely along to we're going to look now past the playoffs into the off season. So right now, the teams that are currently sitting at draft positions 1, 2, and 3 are Detroit, Houston, and Jacksonville. So, gents, what do you see as most likely happening in those 3 locations? And if there is any one other location that you'd like to highlight as well. Justin, you go first.
Detroit shocked me by not going after quarterback in this last draft. And people will say, but, you know, they got Jared Goff in the trade, but there's a reason they got Jared Goff in the trade. Like, LA was basically telling you this guy is not good. And I don't know if Dan Campbell figured they could win with him or their general manager, or they thought, you know, this is a year that we could punt on the season and not care. But it is clear that Jared Goff is not good enough. So for me, like, if you get the top pick and it is looking likely, the very first thing you have to do is get a quarterback. As much as they're winless, I actually like Dan Campbell. The Lions are in a lot of close games. Like, they should have beaten the Steelers. They played the Ravens hard. They played the 49ers hard. They played us hard when we played at them. I think they traveled to us in Green Bay, and they typically every year play us hard. I like what I see for Dan Campbell. The players are leaving it on the field for him, so that clearly he has respect of the players, especially as a former player. I like Dan Campbell, so I would not be looking to move on. I think you have to start, like I've always said, it doesn't matter how good you think you have pieces. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a good team. So you got to address that quarterback situation, whether it's in free agency, and I don't know what the hell is laying about there that is already not cemented in any other franchise. So you got to look at the quarterback in the draft. Houston, he could blow it up. Furthermore, the fans need to force, I don't know how if it can ever happen, that team needs to be sold. Like it needs to be sold. That's an organization that needs to be torn up from the bottom right up or from the top right down. Like, that needs a complete overhaul. It is, I won't get into the disgustingness of that franchise, other than to say from ownership to general manager to coaching. I mean, and this coach is just a stopgap measure, because no one is hiring a 65-year-old, 66-year-old thinking that this is the guy for the future. That was just a stopgap measure. But that entire franchise needs tearing right up from the top right down to the bottom. I don't know whatever happens to Deshaun Watson. I don't know where that's going to go. Obviously, they have to wait for the legal scenario, and it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere quickly. But they need to move on from that situation, even if just to release him to. I don't know how to get away from that contract, but they need to get out from that contract and just tear it right now. Jacksonville, it is as obvious that Urban Meyer needs to go. He should never have been your head coach to start with. And if you've ever watched a single minute of this, Justin, you would know that I said that from the moment that he was hired. I do not understand why he was hired. Not just that I don't believe in college coaches who've never played a single down in the NFL or having no NFL experience coming in as NFL head coaches. This man is a walking bad headline for a lack of. He is a walking controversy from his time at Florida, where over 30 of his players were arrested or on charges. He knowingly, and I don't care what anybody told me, he knowingly recruited a known gangbanger in Aaron Hernandez. And how he knows, because when he was coming out the draft, everyone but AJ's head coach stood away from him because they knew it wasn't for a lack of talent. They knew Aaron Hernandez's background. And yet still that did not matter to Urban Meyer. It did not matter to Urban Meyer when he also knew that his assistant coach was beating up on his wife. And then he turned around and lied about it and said he did not know, although the said assistant coach, there is records showing that she was messaging Urban Meyer's wife. He then gets out of every situation by saying he's sick and he can no longer coach. So he's going here and there. And then magically he finds another coaching job. And then somehow we are shocked when controversy follows him to the NFL. The first thing that follows, what does he do? Hires a man that has never played the tight end position. You give him a shot. And shockingly, he does not make it through training camp. Stunner. Then behind that, even before that, you hire a man as your strength and conditioning coach who had allegations of racism coming out of college. And you gave that man a job. He didn't even make it through training camp. Then the next thing, you are coming fresh off of a loss. Before you go back and join your team on the team plane, you stay in your hometown, go in a bar and have a woman less than half of your age dropping on your lap. And then all of a sudden you did not know that this would cause controversy. Yes, Ken, you did not know that they had an Urban Meyer Marat coming, but I despise this man. I do not know, and it goes back to also the racism foundation that this country is built on, how this white man gets job after job after job after job. And everywhere he leaves it in the worst place that he found it. The first thing Jacksonville needs to do, and granted, Urban Meyer is probably going to take the Oklahoma job or the Notre Dame job. We'll probably take Notre Dame job. So Ken doesn't have to worry to fire him. The first thing is Ken needs a respected NFL head coach in the building.
It is amazing. It is amazing, Justin, that you and AJ have the same handbook and the same textbook, because everything you said, AJ has said continuously all season long with regards to Urban Meyer, almost word for word.
Yep. The reason it's word for word is because this is facts. Yep. There's not propaganda. This is not slander. This is not me casting aspiration on this man's character. Everything I said there is factual. These things have happened in every single stop that this man has gone. He has left the situation worse than he found it.
Yep. Just a ratty old man with no morals who has no right being a head coach. Justin, I don't even feel like following that up. I always think that a good Urban Meyer rant is the best way to end whatever segment. So it's hard for me to bring this back to football right now, but I just want you to know that we are in lockstep there. I don't respect Urban Meyer as in his position. I don't know the guy personally, but I have no respect for him in the position that he's held as a head coach of any whatever football team he's been at. Don't respect it at all. let me try to read it back into football, though. It was so powerful. I was just sitting here like, hey, just preach it, Justin, preach. That's why Ken was laughing all the way through it too, you know.
All the way through.
My very first final thought, or it was a second or something like that when we started the show. It was a rant on Urban Meyer, right? And it was everything you said. It was everything.
Before you go, sorry,
Uh-huh.
AJ, I am in a couple Instagram chats with younger podcasters, and you know, I don't blame them because they're young and you know would have seen Urban Meyer's success at Ohio State and Florida. Well, not Florida, but Ohio State. And when he was hired, everyone was up in arms and so happy and blah blah blah. And I told them, y'all are clearly not old enough to know about the drama that follows this man. And there's like, no, this is a good hire. And I'm like, so you believe that Urban Meyer is going to be a better head coach than someone that could be enemy? And they're going on, you know, what an offensive, brilliant mind this guy is and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And they rattled off everything there for them. Everything that they've refused to see because, again, when it comes to certain colors or shades of complexion in this country, we look past or what we like to look past. And so that Urban Meyer has brought drama into the NFL. Sorry, AJ, it's just my biggest pet peeve. Him.
Yeah, like, again, same page. Yeah, because I feel like there was something else. There was a colleague in one of ours in a chat that Ken and I are also in, and he was on, you know, singing Urban Meyer's praises when he was like, oh, this is a really good. And I was like, no, it's not. Just look and see how this explodes. Something is going to happen. Urban Meyer is going to do something wrong. Urban Myers get too much attention here. I done with him. Just a couple quick notes. So Justin mentioned the teams that those top three in the draft for those lottery picks. Ken, so I just wanted to add a couple names to the list. First of all, the Seattle Seahawks that I just mentioned, something needs to be done, and I think it should be done at coaching level. Russell Wilson is not the main issue at this point, and it makes no sense to like get rid of Russell Wilson to completely start over. I think Pete Carroll is beyond it. He's well. I don't think that Pete Carroll at this point has the answers for this team, and sorry, the Seahawks just don't look well coached. Generally, they don't. In no aspect of the game do they look well coached. It just seems like the team is just a cesspool of errors week in and week out, bad decisions. Obviously, that's not only coaching, but do people not know their roles on the team? Do they not know what they're supposed to do? That always hems back to coaching. So I think at this point, owners need to have a discussion with Pete Carroll, probably ask him to amicably vacate the premises. But I think Pete Carroll at this point is an issue. Another team I want to mention, and go back to my division again and talk about one of my rivals, the Jets, who at the beginning of the season, I had question marks over how they handled their quarterback situation. And this is not in drafting Zach Wilson, but not having like a credible backup behind him. They let go Joe Flacco. Their backup was Mike White. No, they just handed. So essentially, what they did was hand the keys to Zach Wilson and hand the keys to the franchise and was just like, take us wherever you want us to go. Zach Wilson gets hurt, and then you bring in Mike White. He looks spectacular for a game, of course, because no one has any tape on him. Week 2, wet the bed, and then you find yourself having to go back to trade for a player that you just let go. They don't seem to have, and you know what made it even worse? It is the fact that your head coach is now in the media. After Mike White had one spectacular performance, basically he was on a show, or was it doing a press or whatever it was. Either way, he basically said that the future of the Jets quarterback position is day to day. Now, I don't know how in a syntax manner that sentence makes any sense, but this man clearly, even if you believe in your head, I mean, we understand what he means, right? But even if you believe that in your head, after what you've put in and invested in Zach Wilson, there's no way you should be saying this to the media. This organization is lost, and something needs to happen, whether it be And Zach Wilson's hurt again. So they need to fortify that quarterback room. And honestly, I don't want to give Robert Saleh what was the guy that's now at DC that was at Arizona for a year, and I cannot remember his name now. And Ken, you were a bit annoyed.
The black head
coach. Before they brought in Kingsbury. Yeah. Either way.
I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, he's not coming to me now. Either way. I don't want to give him that treatment, but I really think they need to reevaluate Robert Saleh at the end of the year. Honestly.
Okay. So it's been, I mean, at this point, you guys have really covered a lot of people, a lot of teams, and just in what you said about Urban Meyer especially is extremely well said. So I don't have anything to add where those teams are concerned. I don't have anything to add where the teams you mentioned as well, AJ, are concerned. The only team that I'll make mention of now at this point is my Saints, because my Saints, we also have a lot of work to do. And the Saints are forever more up against the cap, and somehow we always find a way to get under the cap. No, AJ, just as a side, Steve Wilkes, that's the name that you were trying to remember.
There we go. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So
he was so short-lived, no one can remember his name.
Right? And he's back to being a DC now or something like that, right? I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the Saints, they have to improve at wide receiver. That is a given. It has been shown this season that if you don't have any help on the outside, then nothing really happens for you in the passing game. The chances are that they may give Jameis a short-term deal just to bring him back on the roster, because right now, going forward, the only two quarterbacks on the roster are Ian Book, who is a rookie that we've not seen in the regular season, and Taysom Hill, who has this funky quarterback contract, which will pay him X amount if he plays every other position other than quarterback, and then Y amount if he plays quarterback. So we know that Taysom Hill is not the answer, but we're paying him as if he's the answer to some question. So we have to do something at the quarterback position. It was interesting to see and hear that the Saints were actually somewhat involved in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Deshaun Watson coming in fixes a lot of the problems, provided that he is not suspended. But right now, there's still a lot of question marks where he is concerned. Aaron Rodgers is another name that was being bandied about. It would be great if he were to come in, but again, we'll have to see. I don't know that he's leaving Green Bay to come to New Orleans with what we have right now.
You may have to come to New Orleans, but yeah, I don't know either. I do know he's leaving though, but
yeah. I know that as well, but the thing is, we know that Denver were making overtures towards him, and Denver definitely has a much more comprehensive package offensively than what the Saints have. So from that perspective, then I don't know if he decides that he's going to come our way instead of coming my way into this city, but one time will tell. All right, so we can put the crystal ball back on the shelf for the time being.
Before you go, Ken, I just want to say one thing, right? And sorry to extend this episode for so long, but there's something to be said about what the Arizona Cardinals have done in terms of an organization, and I want to tip my hat to them and I'll explain why, right? One of the problems, especially in pro sports, is that organizations don't like to admit when they've made a mistake. Now, making a mistake is not a problem, you know. I always say this, especially in my own personal life. The issue comes is when you don't acknowledge the mistake as a mistake, and that's making two mistakes. As much as I don't like to see black coaches discarded, Arizona in their heart of hearts figured Steve Wilkes was a mistake, so why give him another year? Let's move on quickly. And they also knew Josh Rosen was a mistake, and they similarly moved on very quickly. They made no mistake. They did not hesitate. And people would have, questioned their moves and say, oh, but you want to give each person 1 year. And Arizona's like, all right, but we don't care what you on the outside think. We have made a mistake. and we are not going to pretend that this is not a mistake. So they moved on from Steve Wilkes. They moved on from Josh Rosen quickly, and look at the position they are in because they did the one thing that human beings struggle to do: acknowledge their mistakes as mistakes.
Ken and I have actually had that discussion. It wasn't like a heated debate, but I know he was not pleased with the fact that they moved off of Steve Wilkes that easily. But like I was saying back then, and I agree with everything you said, Justin. They were starting a new project, so they built it again from scratch. Got rid of the head coach, got rid of the quarterback, and they got two in who could work in better fashion together. And I actually see no problem with it.
Well, I've been very critical of Cliff Kingsbury because I believe that he just got hired mainly because he was friends with Sean McVay. But this season has shown that he is credible. He is a quality coach, and he's been able to get a lot of good performances out of his team, especially with the injuries that they've had at the quarterback position and other positions. They've continued to win games. I can't be a hater and deny the facts. So all credit goes to Cliff. All right, now, as we look ahead to the week ahead, we have 4 teams that are on a bye: the Carolina Panthers, the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tennessee Titans. They are all resting up this week. So as we look ahead, there are lots of very tasty games on the menu coming up this week. So AJ, I'll give you the first crack to say, what are your tastiest matchups for week 13?
We've been here for a while. I'm not going to list many games. There's one game, Monday night, Patriots Bills. That's it. The game that will decide the AFC.
Interesting. All right. So Justin, what about you?
Oh, I forgot about this segment, so I'm looking. Yeah, but basically what he said, like Patriots Bills, like these 2 games are going to decide the AFC East. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I don't know. Like I don't know what the Patriots' remaining schedule looks like, but yeah, they can win a number 1 seed, and I don't think you want Bill Belichick with an additional week to rest and prepare for people. Yeah, it's the game of the week. It might be the game of the season. Like this decides the AFC East winner, and it could very well decide who gets that number 1 seed in the AFC altogether.
Outside of the 2 Bills games, we have the Jags, the Colts, the Dolphins. Those are the 3 games, Justin.
Oh well, yeah. So anyhow, the Patriots win one of these 2 games. That's a wrap. That's the number 1 seed.
Yeah. So there are a couple other games though that I will just highlight quickly as we get out of here. Thursday night, the Cowboys and the Saints. It is the Cowboys somewhat middling. The recently offense has been a bit jack in the head going up against the Saints defense and a great pass rush, but we are dealing with some injuries and we still don't quite know what's happening at quarterback. So that game does hold some implications and some interest. Chargers at Bengals. That is going to be a great game on Sunday, as well as Ravens at Steelers. Ravens, they need to find a way to fix their offensive woes. The Steelers' defense has not been playing that great, so this could be a get-right game for them. The Broncos, they go to the Chiefs on Sunday night. That should be interesting because the Broncos do have a pretty good defense, especially pass defense, and the Chiefs don't especially like to run the ball. So those are some games that we will be paying attention to. And of course, we will be making our prime time picks where I will hope to redeem myself after picking with my heart and not with my head, and now finding myself probably tied with AJ going forward. All right. So that is a great spot to land this week's episode. As always, we do want to thank you, Justin, for being with us, and we shall definitely have you back before the end of the season, probably in that week 18 as we look ahead to the playoffs.
Yep.
Before I go, I just want to say the NFL is hell of a wrong for not flexing the Chargers and Bengals into that Sunday night spot. Like you have the 2 best quarterbacks from that class in Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert going against each other. and you decide instead to leave the Broncos against the Chiefs, like, nah.
But they do have some flexing coming. Some games have been moved around for week 14 and week 15. And we'll touch on those, in the weeks ahead. So, of course, Justin, you can always let the guys know where they can see you, where they can find you.
Every Monday night, as these two guys know, you can find us 7 o'clock Eastern, that's 6 o'clock Central Time or 8 o'clock Barbados time on YouTube. Type in hashtag this just in. Don't forget the hashtag, or you'll be unfortunately taken to that terrible Max Kellerman ESPN show. But that's hashtag this just in. Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. We do a live show there. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter as well as Facebook. That's hashtag this just in on all those socials. And you will find us, and we post on those 3 socials every single day. My wife is tired liking these posts, so she can tell you we are on those 3 socials every single day.
All right. AJ, what about you? Is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, I just Ken, you might be familiar with him. Like one of my boys from Grenada, Logs, Michael Hercules, aka Logs. He and another a gentleman who I know of, not very familiar with, but I know there's some good basketball heads, and they just started their own podcast, the Collective Bargaining podcast. They do it live on Facebook. It's on Tuesday and Thursday. I think it's 8 Eastern. I believe it's 8 Eastern. I'm sorry, but I need to be a better plug. I was trying to look for the information, but yeah, and it's actually thanks to Logs as well that I have this brand new mic setup that you guys can't see, but so yeah, I'm giving him a little plug here because it's some good stuff. I've checked it out, and yeah, the guys know what they're saying. Just strictly NBA podcast, just some guys chopping it up who are very big basketball fans.
All right. And well, I don't really have anything else to plug at this point. I do have my church, we have a Christmas program on Saturday that I wrote the play. I'm acting in the play. I'm playing piano during this performance. And that will also be on Facebook. But yeah, I do have a very busy week ahead of me with rehearsals tonight and tomorrow night for this production on Saturday. But I will, of course, put more out on my socials as that time draws near.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Thanks. So at this point, we'll end it here. That is AJ. He is the Green. I am Ken. I am the Beige. With us again today was Justin from hashtag this just in, and we will see you next time.